Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to today's lesson. Thank you to all of you who are on time today. Much appreciated. Okay. I hope you guys have been keeping up the practice. I hope you guys have been doing the chess program. I'm sure you guys have been appreciating the slightly warmer weather. It's a little bit better. But I hear the cold is not over just yet, guys. I think we got another cold front coming up in the near future. Hopefully that'll be the last of it. And we're on to clear, sunny skies. I think that'll be a nice change for all of us. All right, guys, let's get into today's lesson. We got a few interesting exercises. We're going to discuss some nice tactics, keeping those brains sharp. And then we've got a nice, interesting end game study to finish things off. So, guys, let's get those brains switched on and let's get ready to rock and roll. All right, as usual, please participate, get involved. Don't just sit there. You know, the more you get involved, the more you'll retain, the more you'll learn. So I only see one of you in the lead chess. Guys, remember to go into the lead chess, please. If you are struggling, what I do recommend you do is go into the studies, where it says here, study, and you go into the main study page, and then I would just select, I would take all of this, everything here. So coach, maths, TLF, senior practice, and just highlight it all and search that whole lot. You'll probably be able to find one of these from previous studies or lessons attended. So just highlight it and search for it. And that way, I think you should find it a little bit easier in the lead chess. Okay, that's cool. Otherwise, you can always follow on the Zoom if that works for you. All right, guys, let's get into it. We've got the first one here. It's black to play. And we need to find a winning combination for black. It looks like black's a piece down. There's quite a lot of tactics flying around here. Let's see what we can uncover. So as usual, guys, you've got to have a look at all possible checks, all possible takes. That's essential. You know, well, let's just start there. I think all good chess players, that's sort of always a good starting point to have a good look, see what checks are there, what takes are there, what do I need to be aware of. I think if I go rook takes, that just seems like they've got knight takes, which is a little bit too convenient. A little bit too convenient for white. He's just going to be a piece up then, and I'm definitely not confident about going further into this game a piece down. We can see black's got some pawns. This e3 pawn looking quite menacing. It's approaching the promotion square. Maybe we can do something with that. I think wink, wink, you know, perhaps we can find a way. All right. Okay, there we go. See more people joining the lead chess. Nicely done. All right. Let me just make sure that you can type in here. Yes, everyone's good. All right, guys. I'd like to get some feedback at this stage. Who's got something for me? Also, what I've recommended previously is even if you are not certain, if you haven't quite come up with the winning formula, try something that you think is good. So ultimately, if it was your move in a chess game, you may not have yet come up with, let's say, the winning move or the best move you've ever seen in your life, but you still have to move. You don't have the option to not move. Okay. Oh, I was just about to get in there. All right. So bishop a2. I'm pretty sure he's talking about bishop h2. Thank you, Zach and Gabriel. Guys, remember you can use the Zoom chat as well. For those of you who are not on the lead chess, like Okay, Zach and Gabriel. Bishop takes d4. All right, so we've got two moves. Let's explore them. I like this, guys. It's a good starting point. So we already addressed that rook takes f5, knight takes f5. Probably not going to be good enough unless I had a promotion plan in mind. So let's just do a quick calc here. Knight f5, e2. You're like, oh, I'm one step away. If it weren't for king f2, if I take king f2 off the table, this position is winning. However, of course, there is king f2. The pawn drops, and that'll be pretty much game over for black, which is a sad day. Let's investigate bishop h2. So, I mean, it's a check. It's a good place to start. I don't really know what it does, unfortunately. I feel like it doesn't have enough firepower behind that move. I might even be able to get away with king h1, but I don't think anyone in their right mind would be wanting to play king h1 just because of the danger of all the discovered checks. And also, you are far further away from the pawn, which is obviously a scare card. So I think, you know, almost automatically white should play king f1 to take both of those things into consideration. So obviously dealing with the pawn and then not getting in the way of the rook. And then we've still got similar kind of problems. So a nice move, a good move, but probably not our best option. So bishop d4 is something that has to be very carefully considered. The point being is if I'm taking this knight, it's all good. I'm picking up a knight, but I'm dropping a rook. So if I don't have the follow-up move, let's say, you know, ready and waiting, then I'm probably going to be in trouble here. So if otherwise I'm just taking a knight and I'm dropping a rook. But there's a winning move in this position that I'm sure a lot of you have already seen, because it's always easier to see it when you're there, you know, and that's why we try and do this analysis in our heads to, you know, to sort of see these things unfolding in your head and seeing the moves in advance. It's always easy once you reach the position, but once you've reached the position, it's too late. If you decide now, ooh, I don't really like my position, it's a little late. There's no takebacks, and you've already made the move. That being said, what's the winning move for black in this position? Easy one, guys. E2. Zach, good man. So, I mean, I wonder if Zach saw that entire combination as well. Thank you, Gabriel. Before he originally played bishop takes d4. Well done then. So, guys, in future, like I said, I think I've mentioned this in the last couple lessons, but we haven't quite nailed it down yet, is we would, let's say if I break it down from the start. So if I were to write this, if somebody asked me, what's the correct way to go about solving this position? So I'd say I put the ... because that actually represents black's move. We won't worry too much about that. So we'll go bishop takes d4. And I'll pop that in there. Then I'll say white will play rook takes h5. Then black will play e2 check, which is good. We'll pop that move in there. At that point, white will play king h1, and black will play e1, queen, mate. I can do two pluses. You see, you can tell, giving away my age here. And then e1 hashtag. Just in case nobody got that reference, two pluses, it used to be two pluses for checkmate, and they changed it to hashtag. So this is, let's say, the full analysis of the combination. Bishop d4, rook takes h5, e2 check, which pretty much forces the king to go to h1, and then you just promote and mate white. So yes, that is kind of a three-move combo, but that's sort of the level that you guys are getting to. We are at that stage. A lot of you are perfectly capable of solving at this level, which is really impressive. Well done to you guys. Let's move on. Okay, so this is a bit of a sneaky. It's kind of a closed position. Whenever I see f4, d4, and e3, it reminds me very much, it's basically a stone wall structure. And that's just the name of an opening where you play d4 and f4, and you get sort of a bind on this e5 square. And often that's where the knight wants to go. So Very much a stonewall structure, what we have here. You can imagine black's just gone knight takes d2. You can see this knight here. It's a freebie. The knight's just waiting to be picked up. But white actually has something else lurking. So, I mean, nobody would fault you for going queen takes d2. Please not king takes d2 here. Obviously, the king does not want to move. We wish to castle. That goes without saying. So king d2, no good. But queen d2, obviously not a winning move. I mean, you just take the piece back and then the show goes on. Black could either maybe go knight e5 or maybe bishop e7, although bishop e7 is a bit sketchy. I just need to develop this bishop so that I can castle. I don't like bishop e7 because of bishop takes and king takes, and it feels like the king's misplaced on e7. Of course, like we said, you want a castle. Okay, but let me not give too much away. All possible checks, all possible takes. White to play. Let's see if you can come up with a nice move. Whoa. Maybe just retype that, please. White to play. Give us a winning move, a good move, a move that you are happy to push, a move that you are saying, this is a great move. You know that there's a tactic there. I think that's always the massive advantage when doing problems or exercises or puzzles. You can kind of, you know that there's something in the position. So it's not guesswork. You're not unsure. Bishop h7. Unfortunately, bishop h7 is not possible. I think I know what he's talking about, and it seems like the right move, but you're going to have to get that notation correct, young man. I had a feeling. Bishop h5. So, hey, let's try out our new trick. So after bishop h5, then I want the next move for black, followed by the next move for white. So let's try and delve a little bit deeper, guys. Let's try and practice that analysis in your head. Remember, the more moves you can see in your head, the better you're going to be. Because, all right, let's look at bishop h5. So there's really only one response, that black can play. So you're like, okay, so I play this, he plays that. Once he plays that, I play this, which pretty much forces him to play that. And then bam, the magic. I'm going to give you that one, g6. So g6 is played. It's forced. If it weren't for g6, it would be mate, which is you're like, whoa, I almost mated him. That's like very positive. You suddenly get a surge of optimism. You're like, wait a second, this is almost mate. If I could just get rid of that pawn, it would be mate. So we got bishop h5 check, black plays g6, blocking the check. And like we said, it's the only move. How do we continue? Boom. Well played, young man. Very, very nice. So, guys, that is how we want to see it. I'm going to highlight it here. I don't know why it doesn't want to let me do that. That's weird. Anyway, I'm going to just highlight it like that. So, want to let me highlight the 6 as well. So, knight g6, h takes g6, bishop takes g6. And if you just added a little hashtag there, that would have been precision, guys. So bishop h5, let's investigate this. And this is what's cool. So you can sort of play it all out in your head, do the analysis, and then you can move the pieces and just double check yourself and just be like, hey, did it unfold the way that I thought it was going to unfold? So as we said, the bishop's kind of a classic illustration of the power of two bishops alongside one another, covering light and dark squares beautifully and giving the king nowhere to run. Okay, so like we said, you got to play g6. It's the only move. Just cancel that. And then knight takes g6, h takes g6. It's all forced. Bishop takes g6, hashtag, there's a little hash. Again, you can always check your notation. with Lichess, because Lichess, the only difference, like we've said previously, is just they put the symbol there instead of the B. So that's cool. I think after knight takes g6, obviously the best move for black is not to take the knight, because that results in mate. I'm just trying to see how they could try to prevent the mate. I mean, the only way is to open up a square for the king somehow. I think it's going to cost him some material, a lot of material. Maybe they can go like knight b6. Reason being, I just want to open up this square. I'm like, it's okay, you can take the rook. Taking the rook with check. f6 might have worked as well. I was just worried with f6 they can just grab it straight away, so that's why I opted for b6. And then king d7. He's sort of on the run, and queen d2. So there's almost, I think, just a reminder, there's almost always some way to save yourself on the chessboard. It's amazing how many defensive resources you have. You basically just got to find them. I mean, that's it. So you just got to dig in, analyze. And this is why I'm always telling you guys, don't rush, don't move quickly. I see it when you guys play the games on the Lichess as well. It's bam, 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 bam. The moves are flying like it's Formula One. But you know, that's the perfect recipe to not play at your best level. So if you're going to play quick moves, obviously you're not going to come up with the best moves that you're capable of seeing. So you know, there's a fine line. You don't want to play too slowly, but you most certainly don't want to play too quickly. And I think for most of you who play too fast, the best bet is to just dial it back and just say to yourselves, okay, I know I play too fast. I'm going to make an effort to slow it down and think carefully about these moves. I mean, if they give you half an hour, okay, half an hour is a bit much, but if they give you 30 minutes to play a game, use the time. It doesn't help that you use 4 minutes of the time and the game's over. You know, you might as well have played 4 minutes, which turns out to be blitz, which is, as the name suggests, fast, very fast-paced chess. Okie dokie. It is white to play. Interesting position. I was just thinking about it. Couple tricky things here. White's the exchange up. That's a term used to describe the rook against the bishop. So it's basically rook against bishop. The king's quite open, which is a little bit scary. There's a couple scary options that black can maybe bring to the table. I see there's a check here and there's a check here. Both of these checks need to be examined, let's say. And there's no obvious move. I mean, the obvious move for white, you like rook f8, but the queen covers that. So obviously, if you could get in rook f8, you'd probably mate them instantly, but that's not happening. Queen g4 and queen c8. It's also no good, really. The king just grabs your rook. So those are sort of off the cards. This is kind of, I would say, a tricky one because there's a very powerful move that white can play, but it's not so obvious. Gabriel's on the ball, and he's just throwing moves at us. Well, thank you, Gabriel. The rook d7, we can get started there. As for the rest of you, as always, possible checks, but we examined the checks. These checks are not too fruitful. And there's nothing to take, so all possible checks and takes are out in this position, not too useful. Oh, this one also examined and not too useful either. Rook d7, it's a nice move. I'm a little worried about this check. I don't know, so I would definitely have to calculate this with you know, very sort of solid accuracy before I could play this move, because there's check, king g2, check, and you're like, ooh, suddenly you're getting a little nervous. King h3, it looks like the best way to dodge the check, and then maybe I can go queen e3 check. Because if you went after queen g1 check, if you went f3, I can go queen f2 check. And now you're like, ooh, the king's on the run. I hope I'm not getting mated. Well, I also hope you're not getting mated. But without thorough calculation, nobody can really be sure. So you don't really want to leave it up to chance whether or not you get mated. But nice move. I mean, there's some big threats here. big threats coming from white. There's queen f7, king h8, and then rook d8, resulting in mate. Always nice when the queen and rook can work together. It's very nice to see the big pieces. So it's a good move. I like it. It's not the best move. There's a better move lurking in the midst. Come on, guys. Somebody else get involved. I think the rest of you have been pretty quiet over the course of the last few minutes. Let's get involved. Ouch. Queen c6 was also a possibility. Gabriel wants to do something with that rook. He's like, got the rook on the brain. And I just want to do things. I'm just not sure. I mean, these two moves feel basically the same. It's the threats of, it's these threats that I'm worried about. And I'm not convinced. I mean, this doesn't change anything. Queen d5 looks juicy, looks very juicy. I like what I'm seeing. So queen d5, I want to show you something really cool here. After queen d5, queen c1 check, right? Again, I think that's probably the most powerful way for black to continue. So queen d5 also creates this potential discovered check. So when you go queen c1, so queen d5, queen c1, rook f1, So that opens up the check. You're going to have to move the king wherever you choose to do so, either h8 or g7, and then bam. That'll be a very, sorry, these arrows can be a little bit confusing, but that's why you need to follow the order in which they're done. It will help you a lot. So queen d5, a very nice move. We'll examine rook d7 and stuff in just a moment's time. Queen d5 creates some big threats. I think the most important one is it puts black's threats to rest. So it deals with queen c6 in an obvious way, and it deals with queen c1 in a less obvious way, but very, very potent. The other thing is, so let's say, for instance, I just played bishop c5, which seems like a pretty soft move. It does feel like it's kind of a nothing move. Yes, I saved the bishop from being lost, but I think theoretically, I mean, you couldn't really take it actually because king takes. But any case, just for this position, bishop c5, where's the winning combination for white? Come on, guys. Easy move here. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. When you've got a discovered check, what you should be thinking, where can I do some damage with this rook? Where can the rook go where he can do some good stuff? I don't mind queen d8, thank you, Byron, but I'm a little worried about king takes rook here. Nobody will be defending the rook. Rook b7, fine, but I don't know. Maybe the rook, maybe is that going to be mate? Is that what the people are planning here? Sneaky, sneaky. I just noticed if king f8, then it's mate. I was like, ouch. But king h8, the queen and the bishop can combine on this square. So I don't know if we're going to get the mate there. Maybe here. You can throw in the check. Queen g7, obviously no good. I just take it. King g8. He's surviving, I think. He's surviving. Well, okay, whether or not they might be able to squeeze a mate there, it's possible, but there's an obvious move. Thank you, Zach. Rook f6. Guys, rook f6, easy. Just take the queen. Say thank you. No need to overcomplicate this. I think that's just game. I think if they go King G7, perhaps we can mate them. Again, I'm very tempted to play Queen F7. I'll probably just play it anyway. And then I'm looking now to see if I can calc the mate. So I'm seeing if I go check, king here. It still doesn't really, there's no obvious way to mate them, in which case you just choose a simple move. Remember, simple chess is good chess, guys. Keep it simple is always a good option. It's a good motto. You know, don't overcomplicate things. Keep it simple. Make your life easy. And then next, h7's dropping, rook h7. So this is actually, in actual fact, probably the simplest way to mate them. Grab the queen, done and dusted. Rook d7. I just want to go into this quickly. Check here, check. So obviously white's mission now is to escape the avalanche of checks. If he escapes the checks, he should be good. So king f3. We said this is a bit dangerous because of this. King here. I think he's escaping them because this check feels weak because of king takes. It's tricky. I mean, black could trade off the queens, although we've had this discussion very many times. Don't trade off when you are behind on material, but this might be an exception to the rule because you're like, well, if I don't trade off, I'm getting mated. Do you think I should trade off? Yes, you should probably trade off. Otherwise, you might get mated, which is not any good. I mean, there's a chance black can hold a draw here. You can try and create like what's called a fortress and just sort of sit and park the bus, as they sometimes refer to it in soccer and things like that, where you just sort of sit and you're like, well, come and get me. You know, you sort of just put all the pawns on the dark squares. Everybody defends everybody. And then you kind of just hold the position, holding on for dear life. I'm not sure if it's enough, though. I think if white can get this pawn to h6, get the king in, you'll be threatening some mates. And maybe black's just in trouble here. All right. Let's move on. This is a classic example of why you don't want to bring your king so far up the board. I'm going to speed it up a little bit with this one. It seems time is running a tad lower than I'd like it to be. The king's a little bit vulnerable here. We've got an interesting threat with the queen pinning the bishop. It's like you just want to take that bishop. Unfortunately, there's two defenders here to counter your two attackers. So for the time being, there's nothing you can really do. It also seems like you can't bring any more firepower into the situation, which is always something you want to do. Attacking chess, you know, you try and bring more pieces, bring more soldiers to the fight. You know, so I'd love to bring another piece in. Unfortunately, the king can't go further here. That would just be illegal. He's unable to do that. Going to g2 would cross the rook and actually remove an attacker from the situation. So we're definitely not interested in doing that. Queen g3, king h5. It doesn't appear like we're going to get any mate going. I'm going to give you guys a clue and say this rook needs to access this king somehow. How do we do it? It's a very subtle, sneaky little move that nobody will see coming. Well, under ordinary circumstances, it's unlikely that people would see it coming. So how do we create an opportunity for that rook to be able to attack the king? That's really what we're getting at here. To our new arrivals, welcome, guys. Let's finish strong. Let's finish strong. Let's get involved. Rook g8, then rook g3. Then rook g3. Sorry, Gabriel, not following here, unfortunately. I got rook g3, but I mean, rook g3 going, ooh, rook g3, rook h3. Suddenly I'm liking it. Check this out, rook g3, rook h3 is the threat. Oof, scary stuff. So like black takes it easy. He's kind of like, oh, I've got this square covered, it's all good. Now he plays h6 to try and open this position up. And bam, ouch, doodles. That's a tough one. Definitely a very nice threat. I feel like king h5 is an unfortunately good resource. Again, there we go, just highlighting the fact that the resources are almost always an option. And guys, just remember, don't play a move and somehow, you know, like what we're saying here, no, he has to then play a move. You should be calculating what potential or what good moves they could play. You should be asking yourself, what move don't I want them to play? And that's the move you should be calculating. Okay, how do they prevent my threat? You always got to look at best move for both sides. So they can prevent the threat by moving out of the pin so they defend the square. And that's how you're really going to improve your analysis, how you're really going to master the art of analyzing on a chessboard. All right, I'm going to help you out with this one so we can move to our in-game study. King g2, a subtle and sneaky move as promised. And the idea is simply just to go rook h1. And you're like, oh, that is nice, actually. It is a sneaky. Again, king h5 is available. Rook h1 check, forces the king off the h file. Bishop h3, no good. I just take it. So king here. And he has escaped. He has escaped us. Hold on a sec. I feel like I need to play an in-between move here. King g2, king h5. Maybe we need to first play king g3 here. Because I thought I was winning this piece. And I wanted to win this piece here. So if we go check, king here. I've got to actually be careful of this now. Hey? He escapes us, and there is no mate. I'm quite confident about this. If bishop f5, queen h4, we should be able to target this. Interesting position, guys. Have a look at it. You can always put it out on the board, analyze it a bit, or you can just use it in the study and just move some pieces around. I think he's going to survive there in that one, actually. So yeah, but like I said, we need to move on to the end game study. Let's go ahead and do that. So this one's pretty cool, and like I said, I don't want to miss out on this one. So let's go. So we're talking king and pawn end game here, even pawn, king and pawn end game. White's playing g4. You can see that I've attached a question mark. I think we touched on it last lesson or the lesson before. You guys can click on these annotations and you can see good move, bad move, brilliant move. And this will sort of help you to understand annotations. And if you ever read chess books, seeing what they're talking about. Aha, the young man is on the ball. G5, very important move. And this is what's called a freeze or a deep freeze. And you can see that what essentially happens here is one pawn stops the movement of two pawns. So now it's kind of like one is worth two because h4 is now impossible because of gh, and then the pawn just runs. And now this is going to turn into a one end game for black. So g4 is a mistake, which allows g5, which freezes, it basically just freezes the h pawn. But I like to think of it as two pawns is the same value now as one. Which, okay, obviously then pretty much ruins things for white. Like I said, he can't play h4. So king here, Again, slow and steady approach is generally the best. I'd probably just go king c5 here, and then I dart off to d4. You want to try and make it as difficult as possible for them to come and get this pawn. It's still close. And as usual, use the king first. I think this might win, but this is best play. Use your king to push their king out. Now you can just run your pawn up here. King h2 and g2, g1. Nice and easy. Just for the record, this position shouldn't be won for black. It should be drawn. Black has created the first pass pawn, but this king is well placed, and it's 2 pawns against 2 pawns, which most of the time with correct play will result in a draw in any case. Yeah, so what they should do, thank you, Gabriel, is they should probably play h4 with the idea of going g4, h5. So, and I think that way they should be able to hold a draw here. So king d5, I think they can probably grab this. So wait, king b5, king here, king here, king here, then h5. As long as they can get in h5, because they need to trade the pawns. I think probably it's best for them just to do this anyway. Then you'll go here, h5. And the whole point is they need to remove this. Don't play g5 here, because then black loses, because they've got defended pass pawn. So you kind of have to take. And then what's going to happen is this king is going to gobble up this pawn. This one's gobbling up this one. There's also no escape. You can't run. Guys, we're about to run out of time. Please play some chess on the lead chess draw. Thank you. I hope you guys did enjoy this lesson. Make sure you use the next half an hour or so to play some games, and try and play a little bit throughout the course of the week. Whenever you've got a little bit of time, just put in some extra chess time. Take care, guys. Have an awesome rest of your week, a great weekend, and until next time, bye-bye.